Of my work is in the field of epigenetics and nutrigenomics. It's this subspecialization of the genetic field, and epigenetics is influenced. It's how the environment is influencing the functionality of our genes. Our genes, you see, they drive all of the different chemical reactions that happen in our body. If the gene becomes mutated because of some environmental factor or some sort of emotional or physical trauma, or even a chemical trauma, which is usually from an environmental factor, that can mutate the gene and cause the gene to start to malexpress, where the gene isn't directing the chemical reactions to happen the way that it normally does. And when that happens, to the body, then the body starts to malfunction. And I like to use the word engines, so to describe our different body chemistry. And so you'll hear me talk about engines not working properly, or me helping to get your engines working properly. And I'm basically talking about the genetic engines. We're going to talk about inflammation in just a second, but I want to back up just a little bit, and I want to talk about the definition of leaky gut. How many of you have heard of leaky gut? Y'all are here tonight. You probably all heard of it. How many of you guys remember, just those of you who have been suffering with different gut issues or immune issues? But it's all over the news now. It's everywhere. It's in the scientific literature. It's in all the research papers. You know, there is such a thing as permeability of the gut. And this permeability of the gut, also called leaky gut, is causing, or is the root cause of a lot of problems in our body nowadays. And I would say about 95% of you who come in to see me, whether you realize it or not, you have leaky gut. And that's the root cause of the problem. Whether your problem is anxiety and depression, whether you have a known gut issue like celiac or colitis or IBS, or whether you have some autoimmune disease that is inflammatory based, which they all are, like fibromyalgia, for example. I can trace all of these things back to leaky gut as being one of the causes. There's never one cause as to why you're not feeling well. There are always a multitude of different variables that we have to look at. You see, the body is very resilient, and the body can handle if one thing isn't working properly. The body will compensate. You may notice that your body's not functioning the same, but you can kind of push through it, and you can keep going, and you can feel okay. But when you start adding this problem or variable with this problem or variable, this problem or variable, and then you've got 5 stacked on top of each other, all of a sudden the seesaw teeters and the body is sick, and you really, really notice it, right? That's when all the alarms finally go off, and you say to yourself, oh my God, something is wrong. By that time, I can guarantee you it's more than just leaky gut. You probably have some different mineral deficiencies, vitamin deficiencies, because you're having malabsorption issues. You probably already have developed systemic inflammatory issues and a host of other things going on. And my job as a holistic doctor is to uncover all the stones and find all the different things that are going on with your body that are not working properly, and to get them working again. I don't go after symptoms. That's what your other doctors were doing. I'm going to look at all of the engines that are not working right. I'm going to look at all of the imbalances or all the deficiencies in your body, and I'm going to work at getting those back on track. I want to talk a little bit about inflammation. Your gut modulates a lot of different activities in your body besides just the systems that are related to the gut itself. So your gut is modulating or helping to control the systems of inflammation. Inflammation is not necessarily a bad thing. Inflammation is a good thing. It's needed. But if the body isn't working properly, the inflammatory issues get out of control and can cause very severe issues with the body. The gut also controls the production of dopamine and serotonin in your brain. How many of you knew that? We're going to talk about that, I think, in our next talk, where we talk about neurochemistry and how it ties back to the gut, and we'll talk about the genetics and all of that. If we look here, we can see that inflammation is the root cause, or one of the root causes. Well, I wouldn't call it a root cause, because the root cause of inflammation is the body not being able to modulate it. And that could be genetic, that could be from having a gut biome that is not working properly or having leaky gut. But inflammation is secondary to the body not working properly. And you can see tertiary issues that happen as a result of inflammation. You've got autoimmune diseases, you've got different metabolic diseases, diabetic complications, and neurological issues. Gut is this incredible ecosystem that if you were to look at it under a high-resolution microscopy, it would look like a coral reef. Have you guys all seen a coral reef? Even if you have never seen one in real life, you've probably seen one on television, right? It's this incredible ecosystem. You know, even the water that's right around the coral reef varies in temperature. It has its own temperature. And if you go, you know, if you're scuba diving and you go, 5 feet away from the coral reef, you'll notice that there's a difference in temperature than when you come close. So it has its own ecosystem with temperature. It has it even has the pH and the salinity of the water right there is slightly different than if you go deeper, or if you go like down the wall away from the coral reef. You have a bunch of different sea life that live there that don't live anywhere else, and they all rely on each other. If you lose one of the species there, it's going to affect the entire reef. How many of you have seen a dead coral reef? When the gut ecosystem becomes very ill, that is what happens to the gut. It goes from looking like a very vibrant, colorful coral reef to looking like a dead coral reef with hardly anything swimming around in there. Whenever we have disrupted the biome or the ecosystem of the gut, and the reef, so to speak, starts to die, we lose the mucosal barrier that is lining the inside of the intestinal wall. The cilia, which I would call like the coral or the seagrass, become very, very sick, and they wilt, because now the mucosal barrier that the cilia live in are now very sick. And all of the different varieties of bacteria and all the happy stuff that is supposed to live there is almost gone. You just don't have very much of it left, not in the numbers that you should have. But what you have that's taken its place would be a bunch of sharks that are taking over the coral reef now. You have bad bacteria, you have staph, and you have strep, and you have E. coli, and you have all these bad bacteria that are normally kept in check. Yes, they do live in our bodies, even when we're healthy, but in such minute numbers, because the healthy bacteria outnumber them and keep them in check. Now they're taking over, right? And you'll have candida that will take over, which is a fungus. It's a fungal pattern. And they will take over the whole area. And because you've lost the mucosal barrier in there and all of the healthy bacteria, and because the cilia are now basically like dead grass in your yard, this system, once it's gone, then the gut becomes permeable. So impermeable is how the gut system normally is. Impermeable means that you can't pass through it, okay? Everything in the body is pretty much permeable to some extent if it's not working properly. And so the ecosystem, once it's destroyed, it becomes permeable, and proteins and bacteria and things that are normally contained inside of that system that cannot escape, now can actually escape through the walls of the intestinal lining. And when that happens, the body, it will set off alarms in the body, because now the body sees that something is wandering around in the body that's not supposed to wander around. And it sets off our immune response. And our immune response goes to work, sending different types of white blood cells to the area to help try to contain the problem. All right? If you fast forward and this process continues to go on for years and years and years, the body will start to not understand what is an invader and what isn't. And this is where we start to set the stage for autoimmune diseases, where the body starts attacking itself. The body doesn't understand what's going on. It's trying to go after infections is what it's trying to do. But it's also somehow going after different parts of our body, whether it's the nervous system, or whether it's the lymphatic system, or whether it's the thyroid, or different organ systems. The body will start to go after itself. And so we can, in the holistic model, we can put patients on protocols so that we can reestablish a healthy biome. It takes a while to do it. We can't do it in a month. I saw a patient today, and I told her, because of what's going on with her, it's probably going to take her 9 months to reestablish her gut biome. 9 months to a year. That doesn't mean that she's not going to start to feel better sooner than that. It's not going to take her that long to start to notice a change, okay? Probably 90 days and she's going to start to notice some changes, but it's going to take her a while. I've had many patients come to me recently, within the last 3 to 5 months, who came to me with known gut issues and already, diagnosed autoimmune issues, who were seeing gastroenterologists. And this is amazing to me. I think this is amazing, and we're really making great strides in working together. But they are actually telling me that they told their gastro that they were seeing me, and their gastro said, "Oh yes, that's wonderful. We want to know more, because we understand that the holistic doctors are able to help you with your gut. We don't understand that kind of work, but we're seeing that the holistic model and we, the gastros, we're starting to come together like this." I thought that that was absolutely amazing. They can save our life when we're in an emergency. They haven't yet learned how to reestablish the biome of the gut, but they're recognizing that there is a leaky gut issue, that there is such thing as a leaky gut, and they're recognizing that when the gut biome has been destroyed, that it then spirals the patient into a lot of different disease processes. They're recognizing that, and this makes it easy for you guys, right? Because you're not having to go to me and I'm telling you to do one thing, and then your gastro is naysaying everything that I'm trying to tell you to do. Now we're seeing changes, and that's amazing. I think I've heard that probably 5 times in the last 2 weeks from patients coming to see me from after they went to see their gastroenterologist. Our EPA standards for tap water are not very good, and I tell all my patients that you need to be drinking filtered water, purified water, and you can get that from a water company like Cielo. You can buy a countertop RO system, a reverse osmosis system now. I think we've got a link to that on our website so that you can go and find it and do your research on that. There's actually a couple of models out now. They're around $350, and you don't have to mount and do all the work underneath your sink. You just set it on your countertop. It's super cool. But it's very important to drink filtered water. And remember, you're also getting fluoride in your shower, but we need to reduce it as much as we can, okay? Also from your toothpastes. Get off the fluoride toothpaste. It's not preventing you from getting cavities. Do your research on that, and you'll see that what I'm saying is true. There are medications. It's not just antibiotics that will destroy your gut biome. There are different medications out there that can also do the same thing. For example, there are different psychotropic drugs that are fluorine or fluoride based, actually, like Prozac. All right, so there are synthetic drugs out there on the market that will cause issues with your gut biome. And taking a probiotic after you've taken an antibiotic is not enough, because they don't have an ecosystem, they don't have a place to live. So you try to re-inoculate, and you're putting all the good guys back in, they don't have anywhere to live, so they're not going to stay around very long. Stress can do it. When you have high cortisol output for long periods of time, that will cause an issue to your gut. I mean, that's without saying, right? You guys know that. If you're under high stress for a long time, it'll cause you to have ulcers. All right? So there are a lot of things, processed foods that have different chemicals in them, like glyphosate. Glyphosate is Roundup. So there are a lot of toxic chemicals in common foods that you're eating every day. If you're not eating organic, then I guarantee you that you're putting glyphosate and who knows what else into your body. And so there are, that's just a handful of things. I'm sure there are more. This is the first case study. This patient, she's a female, 41 years old. She had 4 children, all C-section. History of low progesterone, several miscarriages. Reoccurring flu every 3 to 6 months for the last couple of years. And she had symptoms of fatigue, to the point of even decreased word recall. She was having brain fog. And the reason that I put this one on here is because she was having reoccurring flu. She was having an immune issue. She was getting sick like all the time. On her symptom sheet, among some of her symptoms were fatigue, increased agitation. She was having a skin reaction to gold, which she had never had before, so she was developing more allergies, okay, or more sensitivities. Reoccurring flu, decreased memory, and she was having some constipation. The constipation was her only gut-related symptom. Do you remember me telling you that I'll work on gut 95% of the time, even if it's an unknown issue to the patient, okay? Because I'm working on it before it becomes a huge issue for them, all right? I started seeing this patient in March of last year, and her numbers on the left side there, if you can see them, they were 8s and 7s and 9s. She had a couple of 6s there. So I have the patients rate things on a scale of 0 to 10, with 10 being the worst. And it didn't take her very long to start seeing changes. By May, she was already down at about 50% in her symptoms. When we looked at her blood, we were able to see that she has definitely some patterns of low hydrochloric acid output and malabsorption issues. So I'm seeing some patterns that are congruent with leaky gut. I saw that she had some patterns that were congruent with adrenal stress. She also had low iron. Her systemic inflammatory markers, CRP and homocysteine, were high. She had some thyroid. She was a little bit hypo, I believe, on there. And she had a parasite pattern. Oh, and her vitamin D was low too. So we started addressing these things. And the order that I address these things in and how fast that I can address all of these different things varies with each individual. It depends on how fast that the person can handle it. But we always will triage with the most important things, which are going to be any underlying infectious patterns, any systemic inflammation, and in the genetics, if I see any need for methylation, then we'll work on that. This is the next thing that I looked at after we looked at the blood, was that I looked at the genes. And some of the genes that I look at are, so let me back up a second. Right now I'm looking at 56 different genes. And I like to tell the patients, these genes are your major engine drivers in your body. These genes are driving all of the major functions. So if we can get these guys expressing themselves properly, if they're not expressing themselves properly, then we can get the body working again. And everything that we try to do is going to work much more efficiently. The first subset of genes are the methylation genes. There are about 15 of them that we look at. Your methylation genes are very, very important because they are driving over 250 different processes in your body, including dopamine and serotonin production, including phase 1 and phase 2 liver detox. They're just driving a bunch of functions, okay? I tell people who come to see me who have already done their research and understand that they need to do some gut repair so that they can get their brain chemistry back in check. I also tell them that we need to look at their genes also, because we can get their gut working again and we can reestablish their gut biome. But if we don't look at their genes to make sure that they can uptake into the cell the different nutrients that they're ingesting, that it's not going to do them much good. They have to be methylating, for example, to make their brain chemistry. So we have to fix the gut so that when we get them methylating, they can actually make their brain chemistry. And that's just one example. There's probably 250 examples, right, of why we need to methylate. But these methylation genes also help to control inflammation. If these genes are not working right, that's where we will see homocysteine levels go up in a patient. Okay? And so as we get them methylating by giving them the proper dose of a broken down or specialized form of folate and B12, that helps to bring inflammation down, and it helps to resolve a lot of different issues in the body, because now we can get 250 engines that maybe were only running in 3rd gear. Now we can get them running up all the way up into 5th gear. We can get them running at 100% again, okay? These genes are your biggest engine drivers in your body. That's what I tell the patients. And we need to get these guys working. And that also is going to make your body feel a lot better. The other subset of genes that we look at are genes that have to do with driving inflammation, genes that are driving the production of a special fucosaccharide sugar that feeds the healthy, beneficial bacteria that live in our gut. That's a big one, all right? Because once we recreate the gut biome and we get your gut healthy again, are you going to need to be one of those people who takes a probiotic for the rest of your life because of this one particular gene mutation? If you have a particular mutation in this, if you have a mutation in this particular gene that I'm referring to, you are going to be someone who needs to take a probiotic. And you do need to be very mindful of getting the beneficial bacteria into your gut on a regular basis so that you can maintain all of the work that we did to get you healthy again. Okay? We also will look at genes that drive the synthesis of vitamin D in the body. If you're one of those who has never been able to get your vitamin D up, even if you've taken 50,000 units a day that was prescribed by your doctor, and they would scratch their head and couldn't really figure out why your D levels wouldn't go up, and they probably thought maybe you just weren't taking your vitamin D, but they wouldn't say that to you. It could have been a genetic thing. And if that's the case, then we need to combine vitamin D with vitamin K, and that's the only way that we're going to be able to get your vitamin D levels up, and you will be a vitamin D K-er for life. Thank you again for coming, and y'all drive safe tonight. Thank you.